living in an always-on world. Massive amounts of data gathered, stored, and analyzed to create a seamless, hyper-personalized consumer experience. Our world of radically interoperable data is changing so many aspects of our daily lives, the way we shop, consume information, and even manage our household. Over the next 20 years, with the help of emerging technologies that are open and secure, health information is expected to become not only much more accessible, but more widely shared. How will radical interoperability disrupt healthcare? And will healthcare as we know it exist in the future? This is Tales of Transformation. Today, I have Neil Batra and Casey Graves, both principals with the Life Sciences and Healthcare Practice of Deloitte Consulting, LLP, with me to continue our exploration of the future of health. Welcome, gentlemen.
Great to be here. Yeah, thanks for having us.
We have had such interesting conversations so far with our Season 2 of Tales of Transformation. Neil, start us off with this. What is radical interoperability, and how is it different from regular interoperability?
So interoperability is the linking of data sets. Traditionally, you may think about it from a clinical perspective. I may have, information, one aspect of your health. If I can link it to other aspects of your clinical information, can I put it together and can I have it all be in the same system, sort of be interpreted and linked at the same time for me to then extract the most meaningful, richest insight? From a radical perspective, we actually think about data beyond just the individual, beyond just clinical. We actually think individual information includes things like your mental health status. At some point, we imagine that you're able to digitize and understand, what is your mental health status at the moment, or your emotional status. And we think that certainly links to your health information and gives us real insight in terms of your health, your well-being, how you're likely to have your biology express itself. And so then linking that with other data sets beyond just personal health information, population health information about your community and health and wellness within your geographic area, maybe linking that to environmental data sets like pollen count or traffic patterns, how often you're sitting in traffic, or even, frankly, your financial status. All of these data sets actually have some impact or some insight in terms of your health. And so for us, radically interoperable data is multiple data sets from multiple sources converging and combining and being readable and generating insights real time.
I think from a technical perspective, it's all that and then some. It's the ability to make those things happen and flow across the system using a technology infrastructure that is rapidly evolving and makes the highly complex simple. Interoperability is probably one of the largest technology challenges, and at least in my lifetime, that I think will really be a key in opening us into a whole new frontier, because it's going to open up the aperture of how information flows versus how you go from website to website as a simple example.
When I hear healthcare, I certainly don't think simple. So what can healthcare learn from other radical interoperable industries?
There's some great examples. One is talking on a telephone. So if you would have gone back to a century earlier, making a four-way video conference from the United States to Eastern Asia would have been a highly complicated and difficult thing to do. And so what healthcare can learn is how to focus on what standards and semantics need to be available and adhered to be successful. What I mean by that is this is going to be a bit of an organic and a dynamic process. So the more adaptive those standards are in terms of their ability to consume things that today might have 12 elements in it, tomorrow they might have 15. This is where, AI and other things can, help facilitate, the natural extension of that particular event and to capture those data elements. Healthcare could learn how to create adaptive standards that would be able to sort of dynamically evolve and change over time. And as we sort of shift to focus on the consumer or the patient, I believe that's going to drive a different way of orientation, which will begin to evolve adaptive set of standards to, make this interoperability happen.
For me, Casey, the example that I jump to of interoperability is travel industry.
Yep.
And, used to work through travel agents, and it was such a set of spot solutions, and that agent would kind of piece it together. The reality is that they may not have actually had very good information, but, in a world that we sit in now, I can connect a destination and ways of getting there, hotels and restaurants. And I may have to use different apps, but At the very least, there's an interoperable element of data being able to link, and there's some logic to flight times and travel times and hotel check-ins and cars for hire to sort of take me between destinations. So it's not quite interoperable, but you can see how that would work. Healthcare, we're so far away, but travel for me has been very helpful to think about what's possible as you relate it to health.
I think that's a great example because I'd say even in the last year, you've seen greater levels of the aggregation as a result. They haven't stayed the same for the last decade as a result of more and more of that data becoming integrated and available in sort of a standard way, that they can consume and use to evolve how they provide their services in a pretty highly competitive market.
Yeah, all of this sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
Knowing how complicated it is, right? And I think...
I'm sorry, I have a fax coming in. I'll be right back. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And to me, this spells out that there seems to be this really wide division between what the consumer desires and the reality of healthcare delivery. These spot solutions are a very real thing. So what is this? What are the barriers that are holding healthcare back? Is it informatics? Is it standardization, legacy? Is it all of it? Let's talk a little bit about that.
A great example is the concept of patient consent. People becoming more comfortable with providing consent to allow their data, with the right controls to get to different destinations within the healthcare system, in a relatively standard way is one of the larger challenges that I think the industry faced. But as the demand and the pressure from the consumer grows, that'll become easier and easier.
I actually think it's a mindset of the incumbent providers and the stakeholders in this system. The current stakeholders having a belief that patients/consumers need it served up in a certain way. And it's why these digital native companies coming into the space and having this fierce consumer-centric mindset. And I think they're going to really stir the pot here because in many ways they believe in the consumer and they're going to empower the consumer and break a lot of the orthodoxies we see in the space. And that's going to move us forward. I think a lot of the current incumbent players may not survive this transformation, right? But in my view, that's a function of them not really evolving and accommodating for what I think is the true appetite of the core patient consumer here.
We're seeing that all over the place, right? This consumer-driven behavior, what we demand, we will see in the marketplace. So what do you think the role of consumers play in all of this?
Yeah, I think healthcare becomes consumer-centric to an intense degree. That starts with the data being owned by the consumer on their phone, granting and pulling back access to that data as they navigate the healthcare ecosystem. So I'm traveling and I need to do a telemedicine visit with a physician. I grant them access to my data and I pull it back when I'm done having that consult. I see the consumer really holding the line in terms of a lot of their information, but I also see them flowing towards the aspects of this market that serve a natural consumer orientation to buy stuff. And so what I mean by that is I want to know the price before I buy it. I want to know options on price point and what I get or trade off when I move between price points. I want some independent evaluation of, is that any good or not? What do you think, crowd, and tell me what the crowd sort of views, for that knee versus that knee versus that knee, or maybe that physician or that facility versus the other one. So I think there are a lot of sort of classic consumer dynamics that are missing right now. And I see the educated healthcare consumer really dialing up the pressure on the healthcare marketplace to start providing it. And I think they're going to start voting with their feet and their time and their energy and their voice and their dollars, frankly. I'm going to start navigating to those players that provide it. And again, I do think it's not going to necessarily be the incumbents because they may not believe that the consumer is ready.
And I would agree. I think we're seeing all sorts of what I would say is the initial seeds of what needs to be put in place to make the consumer the center. We're seeing it in mobile apps and our phones. And we're also seeing it, frankly, in a generation of folks that are going to be aging into being the driving population behind where healthcare goes because they're going to be the early consumers of it. I mean, I've got twin 17-year-old boys who are about as transparent as they can get and are truly digital natives, comfortable with sharing their information, but with the appropriate set of context of not sharing too much. And so I think as that generation starts to grow, I think we're going to see a wider adoption from them. And then conversely, as we look at the aging population challenge, we're going to have to push to drive a lot more of this consumer-centric effort and data interoperability in order to deliver care effectively to all the places in the world that we need to do it. And so I think that one part of it, we talked about the data and the technology specifically, but there's the connectivity that will be available to us as well. I think is going to further accelerate this beyond where it is today.
Current healthcare system is known as being fairly siloed. The idea of sharing data all makes sense. Can we have it? So what needs to happen in platforms and technology changes for true interoperability?
I think it starts with beginning to orient your investments and your strategy as a healthcare entity towards where you want to play in this future environment where we will have high degree of interoperability. In a lot of cases, that means, kind of moving to more modern technologies such as the cloud, really starting to think of the world not just as within your business or your sector, but what stakeholders do you want to cooperate with? What are the mechanisms to establish the necessary technology components and capabilities to sort of make that happen? And I think we're starting to see some of that, where we see some of the key players in the industry start to diversify their businesses and breaking down the existing silos within their particular sector or area. And we're seeing some interesting combinations of different sectors coming together to begin to create that path. And I think in a lot of ways, the technology in general, from a computing capacity and sophistication of artificial intelligence type capabilities, the parts and pieces are there, the basic building blocks. I think it's less of a technology challenge from the Moore's Law perspective and more of a, can we get creative and disruptive in how we apply that technology to really vector ourselves towards that future state we're all searching for and that we think will come.
This notion of siloed data sets has paid off nicely for those that build moats around their data. It's actually worked, right? I want to block my data in and I want to make you keep coming back to me. So again, this is another opportunity where I see the orthogonals and these data native businesses stepping into the space and breaking out of the siloed nature of data capture and sharing. Once that is unleashed, I think a lot of these incumbent organizations are going to realize that's no longer a winning strategy. As we go forward and consumers have a different option, you're going to see that strategy is not going to pay off.
Okay, guys, I'm going to put you on the spot. Final question. What would a truly radical future state healthcare information system look like?
In my mind, it's one where we don't even really realize that it's happened. We'll come to expect the ability to walk down the stairs and be greeted with our version of a voice assistant, telling us how many vitamins to take and that we're really low on iron. So here's a supplement as you sort of plan out your workout and your day with the appropriate devices that are monitoring the different aspects of your health. And I think it's going to come subtly. I think we're probably closer to that than we think when we're going to start to have it. It's going to become a natural part of our daily life.
The parallel might be communications today, right? Lots of ways to reach me and lots of ways for me to reach you. Phone, text, email, IM when I'm online, lots of vehicles. But in general, I think anyone operating in today's world feels like, I'm pretty connected. And if I need to reach someone, I can probably reach them through multiple channels. I think healthcare has got to get there where it just kind of works. And there's going to be lots of ways to do it. And you're going to have tailored solutions depending on where you're coming from and what your needs are and who you're connecting with around what issues. But same way that we can pretty much get in touch with anybody. And if I can't, it's really odd. I think healthcare has got to be there. And that's what that radical vision is when it all just kind of works. The data connects, the care providers connect. I'm informed. I have choice. I understand outcomes. I get the outcomes I've been promised and that I've paid for. I spend more of my time on wellness and well-being than I'm receiving care. That's when we figured it out. It's a nice image and it's a nice hope, certainly.
Radical interoperability will be key in achieving a future state of health. Open, secure platforms running with artificial intelligence will enable a personal, hyper-engaged, and empowered consumer to own their journey of health. I want to thank my guests Neil Batra and Casey Graves for joining me today on Tales of Transformation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes this season of Tales of Transformation and our podcast exploration of the future of health. Stay tuned for next season as we continue to explore trends transforming the life sciences and healthcare industry.